The Pawn Stars business owned by Rick Harrison, which was formerly a thriving family enterprise, is currently in the process of disintegrating as a consequence of lawsuits, falsehoods, and scandals. Chumlee, who serves as the show's comedic relief, is found to be in possession of both pharmaceuticals and weaponry, while Corey continues to make stupid choices. The reality of the show is disclosed, and the declining condition of the family is even more severe than you could have anticipated. Rick Harrison's own mother, Joanne Harrison, accused him of forcing her to hand over her stake of the company while she was recovering from a coma. Joanne Harrison was Rick's biological mother. A lawsuit was filed by her, in which she claimed that she was entitled to assets and money, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars that had been misplaced. Rick disputed everything and blamed it on influences from the outside life. A legal dispute had a negative impact on the reputation of the family, but a disclosure had the potential to completely destroy everything. A few of Bigos Harrison's personal issues included becoming intoxicated in public, causing damage to property, and being sued over a damaged recreational vehicle. The legitimacy of the transactions depicted in the show was called into question as a result of a string of poor choices. Just when it appeared that things couldn't possibly get much worse, Rick's son pushed the chaos to a whole new level by committing a crime that was so wicked and awful that he was sentenced to life in prison. Over the course of many years, the reputation of the empire has been progressively deteriorating as each scandal, court action, and treason has begun to corrode what was once thought to be inviolable. The empire was on shaky ground, and the Pawn Stars show, the legacy was tainted with uncleanliness as a result of the numerous scandals, lawsuits, and betrayals that were destroying what had previously appeared to be impenetrable. During the course of the story, the main character, Corey, gets involved in drunken brawls, irresponsible behaviors, and financial difficulties. His rap sheet keeps getting larger, despite the fact that he continues to grin for the cameras as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. In point of fact, Pawn Stars has developed into a reality show that is striving to maintain its relevance by concentrating more on damage management than on historical events. The reality show, One by One, was transformed into a dramatic soap opera due to the use of fabricated scenarios and exaggerated monetary expenditures. Customers began to question the accuracy of their appraisals, and the credibility of the show suffered as a result of the individuals who were providing the appraisals becoming revealed. As a consequence of the case, customers grew enraged and accused the store of engaging in unethical business practices, conducting fraudulent transactions, and providing misleading evaluations. In the past, an engineer by the name of Rick, who had worked on Tucker Automobiles, was responsible for the creation of a one-of-a-kind bicycle that could fetch anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000. However, the vast majority of these motorcycles had either completely lost off the face of the earth or were destroyed. Chumlee, Rick's son, had one of these bicycles, and it was in pristine condition. It had never been repainted, and it had never been tampered with. As a result of Rick's irresponsible choices, everything became much more difficult, and Chumlee was awarded a substantial bonus of $1,111,000 in cash. Chumlee made the decision to get gold teeth for his motorcycle by procuring them from a jeweler and paying for them with his savings. Rick made an effort to invest in either Apple or Google, but Chumlee was not impressed by his efforts. It was during this time that he made the choice to get the gold teeth, and he displayed them while mentally visualizing himself with a gorgeous grin. Because of the unfavorable response, the company had a difficult time recovering, and the show's reputation suffered as a result. The credibility of the program was seriously damaged when Rick's son Chumlee stole a bike that was worth $50,000. The inability of the show to recover from the criticism and the subsequent legal action is another factor that contributed to the further damage done to the company's reputation. Chumlee, a man who is in the process of purchasing a car that he believes would be a treasure, is the main character of the story. The automobile is a perfect illustration of a junker's car, replete with expensive wheels and a sound system that is one of a kind. There are a number of cars on the market, but the seller wants to sell the car for $2,500, despite the fact that it is a money hole. The fact that the seller believes the car is worth $11,000 on its own raises questions about his ability to make decisions. Despite the fact that Rick, the voice of reason, makes a counteroffer of $1,000, Chumlee is already committed to the amount of $2,000 before anyone can take him away. This scenario is akin to the most irresponsible spender at the pawn shop, who had acquired a vehicle that he had no right to own by any stretch of the imagination. Although Rick has experienced his fair share of financial disasters, He struggles to keep his composure in the face of these events. He is locked in at $200, just like the other customer at the pawn store who spends the least amount of money. Customs, a shop that specialized in making unpleasant ideas even more unpleasant, is the next location on the itinerary. After some time has passed, Chumlee reappears with a smug smirk, all set to divulge the masterpiece spoiler he has been keeping hidden. Rick is unable to keep his composure because he has experienced his fair share of financial disasters. Chumlee has now committed an additional $3,000, bringing the total amount of money he has put to $5,000. $2,000 was already a significant amount. The story shows how important it is to take into account not only the potential outcomes of making decisions of this nature, but also the potential outcomes that could occur if one does not make such decisions. When it comes to making judgments, the narrative emphasizes the importance of exercising prudence and the consequences that can result from acting in a different manner. The story revolves around a family-owned firm that specializes in sales of antiques and other one-of-a-kind products. Despite the fact that Chumlee, the proprietor of the store, is ecstatic with the fact that the automobile can bounce up and down on command, the oldest worker at the shop considers it to be the most ludicrous thing he has ever seen. When Chumlee realizes that the oldest employee at the shop is willing to provide the elderly guy with a ride, he is not impressed. In the following case, the infamous jukebox, which is allegedly an ancient collector's item, is the focus of the action. The dealer, who is eager to sell the jukebox, discusses how passionate music lovers would be captivated by it due to the fact that it is so uncommon. However, the jukebox is a nightmare due to the fact that its wiring is out of date, its enclosure is broken, and it is in a condition that is barely usable. Rick, the seller, is unable to convince Chumlee that the deal is worth it because he has already lost a significant amount of ground. Rick adds a little bit of sugar to the pot by indicating that it could be sold for $10,000 if the right buyer comes across it. All things considered, Chumlee had spent an additional $3,000 on the jukebox by the time everything was said and done. In the television show, Harrison, a smart businessman, takes a rundown store and turns it into an empire of television. Handshakes and word of mouth are two of the most well-known ways of communication that he uses. Yet the truth of planned genuine transactions and faked haggling is more intricate than it may appear. It is not only embarrassing, but it is also bad to one's professional reputation with reference to the individual in the event that the issue is later discovered or brought to light. Pawn Stars has been brought to its knees as a result of the circumstance, in addition to the damage that was done to the store where it was located. Pawn Stars, a well-known tourist destination, relied on the faith that consumers had in its brand and reputation in order to appropriately analyze and evaluate things. Pawn Stars was accustomed to receiving positive feedback from clients. However, as concerns began to surface that not all authentic items were, in fact, genuine, confidence started to decline. This was owing to the fact that fears began to appear. A number of additional events, including litigation, conflicts, and public humiliation, took place then. The company that was engaged in the hoax of the Turning Point gold coin was one that extensively included Rick Harrison's name in their commercials. The purpose of these advertisements was to try to get people to buy rare items that they said were made of gold. As soon as customers realized that they had been tricked, the company disappeared, leaving behind customers who were angry and found themselves without any money in their pockets. The number of lawsuits that were being brought by disgruntled former supporters who had turned ardent opponents of the new administration was growing at an alarming rate. The bombshell was the final one in a string of bombshells that could not have been made up. It was the one that had nothing to do with questionable investments or dishonest business tactics. The one that led to his child being condemned to incarceration for the rest of his life. Not just for a few months, but for the rest of his entire life, was the one that caused him to be sentenced to prison. Pawn Stars was nothing more than a show that had been organized, polished, and edited to give the impression that it was a television program. Even if Pawn Stars had been a well-oiled machine that produced excitement out of everyday transactions, the program was still nothing more than a show from the beginning. In spite of the fact that illusions are only temporary, the reality, which was far more dreadful, was significantly more unpleasant. Rick Harrison's empire was built on trust, which he went on to demolish one scandal at a time until it was totally obliterated. Trust served as the cornerstone for his empire. A number of individuals who have been employed at the business for a considerable amount of time recounted their personal experiences and anecdotes concerning the manner in which things were truly carried out. These stories contained stage encounters, manipulative sales, and back-row transactions that were more designed for the purpose of generating entertainment value than for the purpose of carrying out legal commercial activities. The aim of these stories was to provide entertainment value. As a result of having conversations with employees who had been employed by the organization for a substantial amount of time, those who were working for the company came to the realization that the reality show had never been truthful in any manner. In addition to inflicting a substantial amount of public disgrace and legal action, Pawn Stars was a disaster that led to a decline in trust and reputation. Pawn Stars was also responsible for other negative consequences. Pawn Stars wasn't a good game at all. This leads us to the conclusion that Pawn Stars was a complete and utter failure.